Welcome to today's Triple Z. The Triple Z podcast is a daily program that you can use to help you fall asleep each night. Just turn down the volume, lay back, relax, and enjoy as you fall asleep. We saw that our podcast was topping the charts in Morocco, so we are going to read their Wikipedia entry. Let's learn about this interesting country in the dullest way possible. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to write us a review on your podcast platform and share us with a friend. You both might sleep just a little better at night. Our website is Triple Z, that's 3zs.media. You can also like and share our content on Facebook or our Instagram account ZZZ Media Podcast. Music for today's episode was provided by the Sleep channel on Spotify. Music for today's episode was provided by Gaia's Symphony on Apple Music. Morocco, officially the Kingdom of Morocco, is a country in the Maghreb region of North Africa. It overlooks the Mediterranean Sea to the north and the Atlantic Ocean to the west, and has land borders with Algeria to the east and the disputed territory of Western Sahara to the south. Morocco also claims the Spanish exclaves of Ceuta, Melilla, and Penin de Vélez de la Gomera, and several small Spanish-controlled islands off its coast. It spans an area of 446,300 square kilometers, 172,300 square miles, or 710,850 square kilometers, 274,460 square miles, with a population of roughly 37 million citizens. Its official and predominant religion is Islam, and the official languages are Arabic and Berber, Tamazight, French, and the Moroccan dialect of Arabic are also widely spoken. Moroccan identity and culture is a mix of Arab, Berber, African, and European cultures. Its capital is Rabat, while its largest city is Casablanca. The region constituting Morocco has been inhabited since the Paleolithic era over 300,000 years ago, and the first Moroccan state was established by Idris I in 788. It was subsequently ruled by a series of independent dynasties, reaching its zenith as a regional power in the 11th and 12th centuries under the Almoravid and Almohad dynasties, when it controlled most of the Iberian Peninsula and the Maghreb. Centuries of Arab migration to the Maghreb since the 7th century shifted the demographic scope of Morocco. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Morocco faced external threats to its sovereignty, with Portugal seizing some territory and the Ottoman Empire encroaching from the east. The Marinid and Sadik dynasties otherwise resisted foreign domination, and Morocco was the only North African nation to escape Ottoman dominion. The Alawi dynasty, which rules the country to this day, seized power in 1631, and over the next 2 centuries expanded diplomatic and commercial relations with the Western world. Morocco's strategic location near the mouth of the Mediterranean drew renewed European interest. In 1912, France and Spain divided the country into respective protectorates, reserving an international zone in Tangier. Following intermittent riots and revolts against colonial rule, in 1956, Morocco regained its independence and reunified. Since independence, Morocco has remained relatively stable. It has the 5th largest economy in Africa and wields significant influence in both Africa and the Arab world. It is considered a middle power in global affairs and holds membership in the Arab League, the Arab Maghreb Union, the Union for the Mediterranean, and the African Union. Morocco is a unitary semi-constitutional monarchy with an elected parliament. The executive branch is led by the King of Morocco and the Prime Minister, while legislative power is vested in the two chambers of Parliament, the House of Representatives and the House of Councillors. Judicial power rests with the Constitutional Court, which may review the validity of laws, elections, and referendums. The king holds vast executive and legislative powers, especially over the military, foreign policy, and religious affairs. He can issue decrees called tahirs, which have the force of law, and can also dissolve the parliament after consulting the prime minister and the president of the constitutional court. Morocco claims ownership of the non-self-governing territory of Western Sahara, which it has designated its southern provinces. In 1975, after Spain agreed to decolonize the territory and cede its control to Morocco and Mauritania, a guerrilla war broke out between those powers and some of the local inhabitants. In 1979, Mauritania relinquished its claim to the area, but the war continued to rage. In 1991, a ceasefire agreement was reached, but the issue of sovereignty remained unresolved. Today, Morocco occupies two-thirds of the territory, and efforts to resolve the dispute have thus far failed to break the political deadlock. Morocco's modern official Arabic name Al-Mamlaka Al-Maghribiya may best be translated as the Kingdom of the Western Place. Historically, the territory has been part of what the Muslim geographers referred to as Al-Maghrib al-Aq, the farthest west, designating roughly the area from Tiaret to the Atlantic, in contrast with neighboring regions of Al-Maghrib al-Aqsa, the Middle West, Tripoli to Bajaya, and Al-Maghrib al-Adna, the nearest west, Alexandria to Tripoli. Morocco has also been referred to politically by a variety of terms denoting the Sharifi heritage of the Alawi dynasty, such as Al-Ayala ash-Sharifa or Al-Ambariya ash-Sharifa, rendered in French as Al-Empire Cherifian and in English as the Sharifian Empire. The word Morocco is derived from the name of the city of Marrakesh, which was its capital under the Almoravid dynasty, the Almohad Caliphate, and the Saadian dynasty. The origin of the name Marrakesh is disputed, but it most likely comes from the Berber phrase Amor en Yakuz, where Amor can have the meanings part, lot, promise, protection in Yakuz, and its variance Yes in Akuz means God. The expression Amor en Ebi, where Ebi is another word for God, borrowed from Arabic Rabbi, my Lord, means divine protection. The modern Berber name for Marrakesh is Mak, in the Berber Latin script. In Turkish, Morocco is known as Fars, a name derived from its ancient capital of Fez. However, in other parts of the Islamic world, for example in Egyptian and Middle Eastern Arabic literature before the mid-20th century, the name commonly used to refer to Morocco was Marrakesh. That name is still used for the nation today in some languages, including Persian, Urdu, and Punjabi. The English name Morocco is an anglicization of the Spanish name for the country, Morocos. The area of present-day Morocco has been inhabited since at least Paleolithic times, beginning sometime between 190,000 and 90,000 BC. A recent publication has suggested that there is evidence for even earlier human habitation of the area. Homo sapiens fossils that had been discovered in the late 2000s near the Atlantic coast in Jebel Irhoud were recently dated to roughly 315,000 years ago. During the Upper Paleolithic, the Maghreb was more fertile than it is today, resembling a savanna, in contrast to its modern arid landscape. 22,000 years ago, the Aterian culture was succeeded by the Ibero-Mauritian culture, which shared similarities with Iberian cultures. Skeletal similarities have been suggested between the human remains found at Ibero-Mauritian Mectaphilo burial sites and European Cro-Magnon remains. The Ibero-Mauritian culture was succeeded by the Beaker culture in Morocco. Mitochondrial DNA studies have discovered a close ancestral link between Berbers and the Sami of Scandinavia. This evidence supports the theory that some of the peoples who had been living in the Franco-Cantabrian refuge area of southwestern Europe during the late glacial period migrated to northern Europe, contributing to its repopulation after the last ice age. In the early part of classical antiquity, northwest Africa and Morocco were slowly drawn into the wider emerging Mediterranean world by the Phoenicians, who established trading colonies and settlements there, the most substantial of which were Chela, Lixus, and Mogador. Mogador was established as a Phoenician colony as early as the 6th century BC. Morocco later became a realm of the northwest African civilization of ancient Carthage and part of the Carthaginian Empire. The earliest known independent Moroccan state was the Berber Kingdom of Mauritania under King Baga. This ancient kingdom, not to be confused with the modern state of Mauritania, flourished around 225 BC or earlier. Mauritania became a client kingdom of the Roman Empire in 33 BC. Emperor Claudius annexed Mauritania directly in 44 AD, making it a Roman province ruled by an imperial governor, either a procurator Augusti or a legatus Augusti pro praetor. During the crisis of the 3rd century, parts of Mauritania were reconquered by Berbers. By the late 3rd century, direct Roman rule had become confined to a few coastal cities, such as Septim, Ceuta, in Mauritania Tingitana and Churchill in Mauritania Caesariensis. When, in 429 AD, the area was devastated by the Vandals, the Roman Empire lost its remaining possessions in Mauritania, and local Moro-Roman kings assumed control of them. In the 530s, the Eastern Roman Empire, under Byzantine control, re-established direct imperial rule of Septim and Tini, fortified Tinis, and erected a church. The Muslim conquest of the Maghreb, which started in the middle of the 7th century, was achieved by the Umayyad Caliphate early into the following century. It brought both the Arabic language and Islam to the area. Although part of the larger Islamic empire, Morocco was initially organized as a subsidiary province of Afriqiya, with the local governors appointed by the Muslim governor in Karouat. Centuries of Arab migration to the Maghreb since the 7th century shifted the demographic scope of Morocco. The indigenous Berber tribes adopted Islam, but retained their customary laws. They also paid taxes and tribute to the new Muslim administration. The first independent Muslim state in the area of modern Morocco was the Kingdom of Necker, an emirate in the Rif Mountains. It was founded by Salih ibn Mansur in 710 as a client state to the Umayyad Caliphate. After the outbreak of the Berber Revolt in 739, the Berbers formed other independent states such as the Miknasa of Sijil Masa and the Bargawata. The founder of the Idrisid dynasty and the great-grandson of Hassan ibn Ali, Idris ibn Abdullah, had fled to Morocco after the Abbasids' massacre of his family in the Hejaz. He convinced the Araba-Berber tribes to break their allegiance to the distant Abbasid caliphs, and he founded the Idrisid dynasty in 788. The Idrisids established Fez as their capital, and Morocco became a center of Muslim learning and a major regional power. The Idrisids were ousted in 927 by the Fatimid Caliphate and their Miknasa allies. After Miknasa broke off relations with the Fatimids in 932, they were removed from power by the Maghrawa of Sijil Masa in 980. From the 11th century onwards, a series of Berber dynasties arose. Under the Sinhaja Almoravid dynasty and the Masmuda Almohad dynasty, Morocco dominated the Maghreb, Al-Andalus in Iberia, and the western Mediterranean region. From the 13th century onwards, the country saw a massive migration of the Banu Hilal Arab tribes. In the 13th and 14th centuries, the Zenata Berber Marinids held power in Morocco and strove to replicate the successes of the Almohads through military campaigns in Algeria and Spain. They were followed by the Wattasids. In the 15th century, the Reconquista ended Muslim rule in Iberia, and many Muslims and Jews fled to Morocco. Portuguese efforts to control the Atlantic Sea trade in the 15th century did not greatly affect the interior of Morocco, even though they managed to control some possessions on the Moroccan coast, but not venturing further afield inland. In 1549, the region fell to successive Arab dynasties claiming descent from the Islamic prophet, Muhammad. First, the Sharifian Sadi dynasty, who ruled from 1549 to 1659, and then the Alawite dynasty, who remain in power since the 17th century. Morocco faced aggression from Spain in the north, and the Ottoman Empire's allies pressing westward. Under the Sadi dynasty, the country ended the Ovish dynasty of Portugal at the Battle of Alcácer Quibir in 1578. The reign of Ahmad al-Mansur brought new wealth and prestige to the Sultanate, and a large expedition to West Africa inflicted a crushing defeat on the Songhai Empire in 1591. However, managing the territories across the Sahara proved too difficult. After the death of al-Mansur, the country was divided among his sons. After a period of political fragmentation and conflict during the decline of the Sadi dynasty, Morocco was finally reunited by the Alawi, or Alawite, Sultan al-Rashid in the late 1660s, who took Fez in 1666 and Marrakesh in 1668. 225 the Alawists succeeded in stabilizing their position, and while the kingdom was smaller than previous ones in the region, it remained quite wealthy. Against the opposition of local tribes, Ismail ibn Sharif, 1672 to 1727, began to create a unified state. With his Jaish al-Rif, the Rifian army, he reoccupied Tangier from the English, who had abandoned it in 1684, and drove the Spanish from Larache in 1689. Portuguese abandoned Mazagao, their last territory in Morocco, in 1769. However, the siege of Melilla against the Spanish ended in defeat in 1775. Morocco was the first nation to recognize the fledgling United States as an independent nation in 1777. In the beginning of the American Revolution, American merchant ships in the Atlantic Ocean were subject to attacks by other fleets. On December 20th, 1777, Morocco's Sultan Mohammed III declared that American merchant ships would be under the protection of the Sultanate and could thus enjoy safe passage. The Moroccan-American Treaty of Friendship, signed in 1786, stands as the U.S.'s oldest non-broken friendship treaty. As Europe industrialized, Northwest Africa was increasingly prized for its potential for colonization. France showed a strong interest in Morocco as early as 1830, not only to protect the border of its Algerian territory, but also because of the strategic position of Morocco with coasts on the Mediterranean and the open Atlantic. In 1860, a dispute over Spain's Ceuta enclave led Spain to declare war. Victorious Spain won a further enclave and an enlarged Ceuta in the settlement. In 1884, Spain created a protectorate in the coastal areas of Morocco. In 1904, France and Spain carved out zones of influence in Morocco. Recognition by the United Kingdom of France's sphere of influence provoked a strong reaction from the German Empire, and a crisis loomed in 1905. The matter was resolved at the Algeciras Conference in 1906. The Agadir Crisis of 1911 increased tensions between European powers. The 1912 Treaty of Fez made Morocco a protectorate of France and triggered the 1912 Fez riots. Spain continued to operate its coastal protectorate. By the same treaty, Spain assumed the role of protecting power over the northern coastal and southern Saharan zones. Tens of thousands of colonists entered Morocco. Some bought up large amounts of rich agricultural land, while others organized the exploitation and modernization of mines and harbors. Interest groups that formed among these elements continually pressured France to increase its control over Morocco, a control which was also made necessary by the continuous wars among Moroccan tribes, part of which had taken sides with the French since the beginning of the conquest. The French colonial administrator, Governor-General Marshal Hubert Lyautey, sincerely admired Moroccan culture and succeeded in imposing a joint Moroccan-French administration while creating a modern school system. Several divisions of Moroccan soldiers, Goumiers or regular troops and officers, served in the French army in both World War I and World War II, and in the Spanish Nationalist Army in the Spanish Civil War and after, regulars. The institution of slavery was abolished in 1925. Between 1921 and 1926, an uprising in the Rif Mountains, led by Abd el-Krim, led to the establishment of the Republic of the Rif. The Spanish used anti-civilian bombing raids and mustard gas to prevent the Rif Republic from independence. They lost more than 13,000 soldiers at Annual in July-August 1921 alone. The Rifi were eventually suppressed by 1927 by the Franco-Spanish military. The casualties on the Spanish-French side were 52,000, and from the Rifi 10,000 died. In 1943, the Istiqlal Party, Independence Party, was founded to press for independence, with discreet U.S. support. Moroccan nationalists drew heavily on transnational activist networks for lobbying to end colonial rule, primarily at the United Nations. The Istiqlal Party subsequently provided most of the leadership for the nationalist movement. France's exile of Sultan Mohammed V in 1953 to Madagascar and his replacement by the unpopular Mohammed Ben Arafat sparked active opposition to the French and Spanish protectorates. The most notable violence occurred in Oujda, where Moroccans attacked French and other European residents in the streets. France allowed Mohammed V to return in 1955, and the negotiations that led to Moroccan independence began the following year. In March 1956, Morocco regained its independence from France as the Kingdom of Morocco. A month later, Spain forsook its protectorate in northern Morocco to the new state, but kept its two coastal enclaves, Ceuta and Melilla, on the Mediterranean coast, which dated from earlier conquests, but on which Morocco still claims sovereignty to this day. Sultan Mohammed became king in 1957. Upon the death of Mohammed V, Hassan II became king of Morocco on March 3, 1961. Morocco held its first general elections in 1963. However, Hassan declared a state of emergency and suspended parliament in 1965. In 1971 and 1972, there were two failed attempts to depose the king and establish a republic. A truth commission set up in 2005 to investigate human rights abuses during his reign confirmed nearly 10,000 cases, ranging from death in detention to forced exile. Some 592 people were recorded killed during Hassan's rule, according to the Truth Commission. In 1963, the Sand War was fought between Algerian and Moroccan troops over Moroccan claims to parts of Algerian territory. A formal peace agreement was signed in February 1964. However, relations remained strained between the two countries following the conflict. The Spanish enclave of Ifni in the south was returned to Morocco in 1969. The Polisario movement was formed in 1973 with the aim of establishing an independent state in the Spanish Sahara. On November 6, 1975, King Hassan asked for volunteers to cross into the Spanish Sahara. Some 350,000 civilians were reported as being involved in the Green March. A month later, Spain agreed to leave the Spanish Sahara, soon to become Western Sahara, and to transfer it to joint Moroccan-Mauritanian control, despite the objections and threats of military intervention by Algeria. Moroccan forces occupied the territory. Moroccan and Algerian troops soon clashed in Western Sahara. Morocco and Mauritania divided up Western Sahara. Fighting between the Moroccan military and Polisario forces continued for many years. The prolonged war was a considerable financial drain on Morocco. In 1983, Hassan cancelled planned elections amid political unrest and economic crisis. In 1984, Morocco left the Organization of African Unity in protest at the Sadr's admission to the body. Polisario claimed to have killed more than 5,000 Moroccan soldiers between 1982 and 1985. Algerian authorities have estimated the number of Sahrawi refugees in Algeria to be 165,000. Diplomatic relations with Algeria were restored in 1988. In 1991, a UN-monitored ceasefire began in Western Sahara, but the territory's status remains undecided and ceasefire violations are reported. The following decade saw much wrangling over a proposed referendum on the future of the territory, but the deadlock was not broken. Political reforms in the 1990s resulted in the establishment of a bicameral legislature, with Morocco's first opposition-led government coming to power. King Hassan II died in 1999 and was succeeded by his son, Mohammed VI. He is a cautious modernizer who has introduced some economic and social liberalization. Mohammed VI paid a controversial visit to the Western Sahara in 2002. Morocco unveiled an autonomy blueprint for Western Sahara to the United Nations in 2007. The Polisario rejected the plan and put forward its own proposal. Morocco and the Polisario Front held UN-sponsored talks in New York City but failed to come to any agreement. In 2010, security forces stormed a protest camp in the Western Sahara, triggering violent demonstrations in the regional capital El Ayoun. In 2002, Morocco and Spain agreed to a US-brokered resolution over the disputed island of Perejil. Spanish troops had taken the normally uninhabited island after Moroccan soldiers landed on it and set up tents and a flag. There were renewed tensions in 2005 as dozens of African migrants stormed the borders of the Spanish enclaves of Melilla and Ceuta. In response, Spain deported dozens of the illegal migrants to Morocco from Melilla. In 2006, the Spanish Premier Zapatero visited Spanish enclaves. He was the first Spanish leader in 25 years to make an official visit to the territories. The following year, Spanish King Juan Carlos I visited Ceuta and Melilla, further angering Morocco, which demanded control of the enclaves. During the 2011 to 2012 Moroccan protests, thousands of people rallied in Rabat and other cities, calling for political reform and a new constitution curbing the powers of the king. In July 2011, the king won a landslide victory in a referendum on a reformed constitution he had proposed to placate the Arab Spring protests. In the first general elections that followed, the moderate Islamist Justice and Development Party won a plurality of seats, with Abdullah Benkarein being designated as head of government per the new constitution. Despite the reforms made by Mohammed VI, demonstrators continued to call for deeper reforms. Hundreds took part in a trade union rally in Casablanca in May 2012. Participants accused the government of failing to deliver on reforms. On December 10, 2020, Israel-Morocco normalization agreement was announced, and Morocco announced its intention to resume diplomatic relations with Israel. Joint Declaration of the Kingdom of Morocco, the United States of America and the State of Israel was signed on December 22, 2020. On August 24, 2021, neighboring Algeria cut diplomatic relations with Morocco, accusing Morocco of supporting a separatist group and hostile actions against Algeria. Morocco called the decision unjustified. On September 8, 2023, a 6.8 magnitude earthquake hit Morocco, killing more than 2,800 people and injuring thousands. The epicenter of the quake was around 70 kilometers southwest of city of Marrakesh. Morocco has a coast by the Atlantic Ocean that reaches past the Strait of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean Sea. It is bordered by Spain to the north, a water border through the strait, and land borders with three small Spanish-controlled exclaves, Ceuta, Melilla, and Península de la Gomera, Algeria to the east, and Western Sahara to the south. Since Morocco controls most of Western Sahara, its de facto southern boundary is with Mauritania. The internationally recognized borders of the country lie between latitudes 27 degrees and 36 degrees north and longitudes 1 degree and 14 degrees west. Adding Western Sahara, Morocco lies mostly between 21 degrees and 36 degrees north and 1 degree and 17 degrees west. The Ras Nouadhibou Peninsula is slightly south of 21 degrees and west of 17 degrees. The geography of Morocco spans from the Atlantic Ocean to mountainous areas to the Sahara Desert. Morocco is a northern African country bordering the North Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, between Algeria and the annexed Western Sahara. It is one of only 3 nations, along with Spain and France, to have both Atlantic and Mediterranean coastlines. A large part of Morocco is mountainous. The Atlas Mountains are located mainly in the center and the south of the country. The Rif Mountains are located in the north of the country. Both ranges are mainly inhabited by the Berber people. At 446,550 square kilometers, 172,414 square miles, Morocco, excluding Western Sahara, is the 57th largest country in the world. Algeria borders Morocco to the east and southeast, though the border between the two countries has been closed since 1994. Spanish territory in northwest Africa neighboring Morocco comprises 5 enclaves on the Mediterranean coast: Ceuta, Melilla, Península de la Gomera, Penín de Algeciras, the Chafarinas Islands, and the disputed islet Perejil. Off the Atlantic coast, the Canary Islands belong to Spain, whereas Madeira to the north is Portuguese. To the north, Morocco is bordered by the Strait of Gibraltar, where international shipping has unimpeded transit passage between the Atlantic and Mediterranean. The Rif Mountains stretch over the region bordering the Mediterranean from the northwest to the northeast. The Atlas Mountains run down the backbone of the country from the northeast to the southwest. Most of the southeast portion of the country is in the Sahara Desert and as such is generally sparsely populated and unproductive economically. Most of the population lives to the north of these mountains, while to the south lies the Western Sahara, a former Spanish colony that was annexed by Morocco in 1975, see Green March. Morocco claims that the Western Sahara is part of its territory and refers to that as its southern provinces. Morocco's capital city is Rabat. Its largest city is its main port, Casablanca. Other cities recording a population over 500,000 in the 2014 Moroccan census are Fez, Marrakesh, Meknes, Sale, and Tangier. Morocco is represented in the ISO 31661 Alpha 2 geographical encoding standard by the symbol MA. This code was used as the basis for Morocco's internet domain. MA. In terms of area, Morocco is comprised predominantly of hot summer Mediterranean climate (CSA) and hot desert climate (BWH) zones. Central mountain ranges and the effects of the cold Canary Current off the Atlantic coast are significant factors in Morocco's relatively large variety of vegetation zones, ranging from lush forests in the northern and central mountains, giving way to steppe, semi-arid and desert areas in the eastern and southern regions. The Moroccan coastal plains experience remarkably moderate temperatures even in summer. On the whole, this range of climates is similar to that of Southern California. In the Rif, Middle and High Atlas Mountains, there exist several different types of climates, Mediterranean along the coastal lowlands, giving way to a humid temperate climate at higher elevations with sufficient moisture to allow for the growth of different species of oaks, moss carpets, junipers, and Atlantic fir, which is a royal conifer tree endemic to Morocco. In the valleys, fertile soils and high precipitation allow for the growth of thick and lush forests. Cloud forests can be found in the west of the Rif Mountains and Middle Atlas Mountains. At higher elevations, the climate becomes alpine in character and can sustain ski resorts. Southeast of the Atlas Mountains, near the Algerian borders, the climate becomes very dry, with long and hot summers. Extreme heat and low moisture levels are especially pronounced in the lowland regions east of the Atlas Range due to the rain-shadow effect of the mountain system. The southeasternmost portions of Morocco are very hot and include portions of the Sahara Desert, where vast swathes of sand dunes and rocky plains are dotted with lush oases. In contrast to the Sahara region in the south, coastal plains are fertile in the central and northern regions of the country and comprise the backbone of the country's agriculture, in which 95% of the population live. The direct exposure to the North Atlantic Ocean, the proximity to mainland Europe, and the long-stretched Rif and Atlas Mountains are the factors of the rather European-like climate in the northern half of the country. That makes Morocco a country of contrasts. Forested areas cover about 12% of the country, while arable land accounts for 18%. Approximately 5% of Moroccan land is irrigated for agricultural use. In general, apart from the southeast regions, pre-Saharan and desert areas, Morocco's climate and geography are very similar to the Iberian Peninsula. Thus, Morocco has the following climate zones. Mediterranean dominates the coastal Mediterranean regions of the country along the 500-kilometer strip and some parts of the Atlantic coast. Summers are hot to moderately hot and dry. Average highs are between 29 degrees Celsius (84.2 degrees Fahrenheit) and 32 degrees Celsius (89.6 degrees Fahrenheit). Winters are generally mild and wet. Daily average temperatures hover around 9 degrees Celsius (48.2 degrees Fahrenheit) to 11 degrees Celsius (51.8 degrees Fahrenheit), and average low are around 5 degrees Celsius (41.0 degrees Fahrenheit) to 8 degrees Celsius (46.4 degrees Fahrenheit), typical to the coastal areas of the West Mediterranean. Annual precipitation in this area vary from 600 to 800 millimeters in the west to 350 to 500 millimeters in the east. Notable cities that fall into this zone are Tangier, Tetuan, Al Hoceima, Nador, and Safi. Sub-Mediterranean, it influences cities that show Mediterranean characteristics but remain fairly influenced by other climates owing to their either relative elevation or direct exposure to the North Atlantic Ocean. We thus have two main influencing climates: oceanic, determined by the cooler summers, where highs are around 27 degrees Celsius (80.6 degrees Fahrenheit), and in terms of the Essaouira region, are almost always around 21 degrees Celsius (69.8 degrees Fahrenheit). The median daily temperatures can get as low as 19 degrees Celsius (66.2 degrees Fahrenheit), while winters are chilly to mild and wet. Annual precipitation varies from 400 to 700 millimeters. Notable cities that fall into this zone are Rabat, Casablanca, Kenitra, Sale, and Essaouira. Continental, determined by the bigger gap between highs and lows that results in hotter summers and colder winters than found in typical Mediterranean zones. In summer, daily highs can get as high as 40 degrees Celsius (104.0 degrees Fahrenheit) during heat waves, but usually are between 32 degrees Celsius (89.6 degrees Fahrenheit) and 36 degrees Celsius (96.8 degrees Fahrenheit). However, temperatures drop as the sun sets. Night temperatures usually fall below 20 degrees Celsius (68.0 degrees Fahrenheit) and sometimes as low as 10 degrees Celsius (50.0 degrees Fahrenheit) in midsummer. Winters are cooler and can get below the freezing point multiple times between December and February. Also, snow can fall occasionally. Fez, for example, registered -8 degrees Celsius (17.6 degrees Fahrenheit) in winter 2005. Annual precipitation varies between 500 and 900 millimeters. Notable cities are Fez, Meknes, Chefchaouen, Beni Mellal, and Taza. Continental dominates the mountainous regions of the north and central parts of the country, where summers are hot to very hot, with highs between 32 degrees Celsius (89.6 degrees Fahrenheit) and 36 degrees Celsius (96.8 degrees Fahrenheit). Winters, on the other hand, are cold, and lows usually go beyond the freezing point. And when cold, damp air comes to Morocco from the northwest, for a few days, temperatures sometimes get below -5 degrees Celsius (23.0 degrees Fahrenheit). It often snows abundantly in this part of the country. Precipitation varies between 400 and 800 millimeters. Notable cities are Kenifra, Emilchil, Midelt, and Azalil. Alpine, found in some parts of the Middle Atlas mountain range and the eastern part of the High Atlas mountain range. Summers are very warm to moderately hot, and winters are longer, cold, and snowy. Precipitation varies between 400 and 1,200 millimeters. In summer, highs barely go above 30 degrees Celsius (86.0 degrees Fahrenheit), and lows are cool on average below 15 degrees Celsius (59.0 degrees Fahrenheit). In winters, highs average around 8 degrees Celsius (46.4 degrees Fahrenheit), and lows go well below the freezing point. In this part of country, there are many ski resorts, such as Akanden and Nistlefen. Notable cities are Afrain, Asru, and Bolmain. Semi-arid, this type of climate is found in the south of the country and some parts of the east of the country, where rainfall is lower and annual precipitations are between 200 and 350 millimeters. However, one usually finds Mediterranean characteristics in those regions, such as the precipitation pattern and thermal attributes. Notable cities are Agadir, Marrakesh, and Oujda. South of Agadir and east of Jarada near the Algerian borders, arid and desert climate starts to prevail. Due to Morocco's proximity to the Sahara Desert and the North Sea of the Atlantic Ocean, two phenomena occur to influence the regional seasonal temperatures, either by raising temperatures by 7 to 8 degrees Celsius when Sirocco blows from the east creating heat waves, or by lowering temperatures by 7 to 8 degrees Celsius when cold damp air blows from the northwest, creating a cold wave or cold spell. However, these phenomena do not last for more than 2 to 5 days on average. Climate change is expected to significantly impact Morocco on multiple dimensions. As a coastal country with hot and arid climates, environmental impacts are likely to be wide and varied. As of the 2019 Climate Change Performance Index, Morocco was ranked second in preparedness behind Sweden. Morocco has a wide range of biodiversity. It is part of the Mediterranean Basin, an area with exceptional concentrations of endemic species undergoing rapid rates of habitat loss, and is therefore considered to be a hotspot for conservation priority. Avifauna are notably variant. The avifauna of Morocco includes a total of 454 species, 5 of which have been introduced by humans, and 156 are rarely or accidentally seen. The Barbary lion, hunted to extinction in the wild, was a subspecies native to Morocco and is a national emblem. The last Barbary lion in the wild was shot in the Atlas Mountains in 1922. The other two primary predators of northern Africa, the Atlas bear and Barbary leopard, are now extinct and critically endangered, respectively. Relic populations of the West African crocodile persisted in the Draw River until the 20th century. The Barbary macaque, a primate endemic to Morocco and Algeria, is also facing extinction due to offtake for trade, human interruption, urbanization, wood and real estate expansion that diminish forested area, the macaque's habitat. Trade of animals and plants for food, pets, medicinal purposes, souvenirs and photo props is common across Morocco, despite laws making much of it illegal. This trade is unregulated and causing unknown reductions of wild populations of native Moroccan wildlife. Because of the proximity of northern Morocco to Europe, species such as cacti, tortoises, mammal skins, and high-value birds, falcons and bustards, are harvested in various parts of the country and exported in appreciable quantities, with especially large volumes of eel harvested, 60 tons exported to the Far East in the period 2009-2011. Morocco is home to 6 terrestrial ecoregions: Mediterranean conifer and mixed forests, Mediterranean high Atlas juniper steppe, Mediterranean acacia argynia dry woodlands and succulent thickets, Mediterranean dry woodlands and steppe, Mediterranean woodlands and forests, and North Saharan steppe and woodlands. It had a 2019 Forest Landscape Integrity Index mean score of 6.74/10, ranking it 66th globally out of 172 countries. According to the 2022 Economist Democracy Index, Morocco is ruled under a hybrid regime, scoring number 3 in the Middle East and North Africa, and number 95 in the world. Morocco has a difficult ranking on the 2023 World Press Freedom Index. Following the March 1998 elections, a coalition government headed by opposition socialist leader Abderrahmane Youssoufi and composed largely of ministers drawn from opposition parties was formed. Prime Minister Youssoufi's government was the first ever government drawn primarily from opposition parties, and also represents the first opportunity for a coalition of socialists, left of center, and nationalist parties to be included in the government until October 2002. It was also the first time in the modern political history of the Arab world that the opposition assumed power following an election. The current government is headed by Aziz Akanek. The Constitution of Morocco provides for a monarchy with a parliament and an independent judiciary. With the 2011 constitutional reforms, the King of Morocco retains less executive powers, whereas those of the Prime Minister have been enlarged. The Constitution grants the King honorific powers. Among other powers, he is both the secular political leader and the commander of the faithful as a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. He presides over the Council of Ministers, appoints the Prime Minister from the political party that has won the most seats in the parliamentary elections, and on recommendations from the latter, appoints the members of the government. The Constitution of 1996 theoretically allowed the king to terminate the tenure of any minister, and after consultation with the heads of the higher and lower assemblies, to dissolve the parliament, suspend the constitution, call for new elections, or rule by decree. The only time this happened was in 1965. The king is formally the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Since the constitutional reform of 1996, the bicameral legislature consists of 2 chambers. The Assembly of Representatives of Morocco, Mejlis an-Nuwab/Assembly de Representants, has 325 members elected for a 5-year term, 295 elected in multi-seat constituencies and 30 in national lists consisting only of women. The Assembly of Councillors, Mejlis al-Mustashirin, has 270 members, elected for a 9-year term, elected by local councils, 162 seats, professional chambers, 91 seats, and wage earners, 27 seats. The Parliament's powers, though still relatively limited, were expanded under the 1992 and 1996 and even further in the 2011 constitutional revisions, and include budgetary matters, approving bills, questioning ministers, and establishing ad hoc commissions of inquiry to investigate the government's actions. The lower chamber of Parliament may dissolve the government through a vote of no confidence. The latest parliamentary elections were held on September 8, 2021. Voter turnout in these elections was estimated to be 50.35% of registered voters. Morocco's military consists of the Royal Armed Forces. This includes the Army, the largest branch, the Navy, the Air Force, the Royal Guard, the Royal Gendarmerie, and the Auxiliary Forces. Internal security is generally effective, and acts of political violence are rare, with one exception, the 2003 Casablanca bombings, which killed 45 people. The UN maintains a small observer force in Western Sahara, where a large number of Moroccan troops are stationed. The Sahrawi Polisario Front maintains an active militia of an estimated 5,000 fighters in Western Sahara and has engaged in intermittent warfare with Moroccan forces since the 1970s.